Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to TacticalBassin. Today we're talking fall crankbait fishing, deep diving crankbaits, speed cranking, the mistakes that people make, and what you can do to set yourself apart. Speed cranking in the fall is something that I look forward to all year long. Other people are thinking fall, they're thinking football, they're thinking getting in the woods. Not me. I'm thinking speed cranking. Cranking and throwing a jig. Those are the two things that I geek out about in the fall. What makes speed cranking so special is this is one of only a handful of techniques that can trigger a true feed response in a bass. And of those techniques, it is the one that I believe fools the most giants every year. This is a technique that you can use to catch the biggest bass in the lake during this short period of time, and it works unbelievably well. So I get really amped up about it. Now, before we dive into this category, just a quick note for you guys. Many of you know our Holiday Buyer's Guide series, by far the most requested and most popular series we do every year. It's coming. It's just a few days away, so you need to start keeping an eye out for that. For those of you that aren't familiar, it is a series where we switch our schedule up and we go 7 days a week. A new video every single day, and it's just a few days away. That will coincide with Black Friday sales, holiday sales. It's to help you guys understand the best tackle in all sorts of different categories, the best rods and reels at different prices, and getting all of that information at a time that things are on sale and you can save money. So we're really amped up about it. It's just a few days away. We can't wait to get it kicked off. Make sure you're keeping an eye out for that. Now, back to speed cranking. The first thing I want to address is the one mistake. Well, actually I see a few, but the biggest mistake that I see anglers make, because there are so many guys that will break their personal best this fall speed cranking. There are so many guys that will catch multiple giant bass, and there are a lot of people that will catch a ton of fish doing this. But then you hear that oddball guy who's like, nah, I tried that, doesn't work at all. So here's the mistake. Here's what that guy is doing. I don't even have to be in his boat. I never have to go to his lake to already know what the problem is. The people that struggle with fall speed cranking don't realize how specific this really is. This is not a pop open your crankbait box, grab a random bait, and try to speed crank. One, most of the baits can't even do it without blowing out. Now, tuning baits goes a long way, and even the best baits on the market, we tune them a lot. So I can give you a brief on that too. I wasn't planning to, but as it's coming out of my mouth, I'm thinking I should probably do that. But the biggest thing is you have to understand there's only a handful of baits that actually do this well. So it's not like a take the general information, sort of apply it to your fishing, sort of apply it to your baits and see what happens. It doesn't really work. Now, the one caveat to that is as the water is still warm, like relatively warm, right? It's already cooling quite a bit, but relatively warm, you can catch them on random baits, right? Like we catch a lot of fish. As we were growing up, we caught a lot of fish on 6XDs and Normans, the DD22, and a variety of baits in the fall, and we could catch a lot of fish on them. But as that water temp gets colder, as we're headed through November, into December and January, when it really starts getting cold, it is so specific. There are the baits that get tons of bites, and there are the baits that get 0 bites. And if you don't understand that it's that narrowed down, you're missing it completely. Now, what is the deal? Let's dive into the actual, what is it? How do you do it? And then we'll jump into some specific baits and components and things like that. Speed cranking in the fall is about taking a variety of deep diving crankbaits, there's a handful of them, and turning the handle faster than anyone ever told you that you could. Okay, that's what it's really about. We use all 7-to-1 and 8-to-1 reels. We all grew up cranking on a 5-to-1 or even slower. That's what we were all told that we needed, right? Throw that big deep diving crankbait out there and just reel it back to the boat. And it's pulling against you, so you don't want to reel too hard or you get tired, right? That was bass fishing knowledge not that long ago. Okay, take that, throw it out the window. You either get a 7-to-1 or an 8-to-1 reel, a burner reel. We're gonna fire these baits and we're gonna burn them just as fast as we can turn that handle. No joke. We want to get these things down. We want them going fast. Now, it's a combination. Everybody knows what's coming, right? Burn, 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 pause. Burn, 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 pause. Burn, pause, burn, burn, pause. It's all about that pause. Now, there are days where you'll go cranking super hard to get that thing down and it will already load up. The fish will come after it full speed ahead. But other days, 100% of your bites come when you pause that bait. So what's going on there? Why is this working? What's happening with the bass? Traditionally, we thought that as the water temperatures cooled, the bass really slowed down. And in some instances, that is true. But as it turns out, you can trigger this feed response as a bait flies past the bass. Certain movements, certain sounds will cause a bass to lash out and chase, regardless of water temperature. I'm telling you, I have smashed them speed cranking this bait right here in water temperatures down to 37 degrees, turning a handle as fast as I can go. Complete opposite of everything we thought we knew about bass behavior. Now, how we narrow this thing down to catch giants, this is where the details start to matter, okay? And we're gonna get into those in a minute. But before we do, let's talk about sort of the general deal. Where are we doing this? How are we doing it? So we've already talked about speed. You need a fast reel. Generally, I'm doing this on straight fluorocarbon, okay? I didn't used to. I used to do it on braid to leader. And there are days where I 100% still do that because braid to leader is more reactive. It can draw a more aggressive strike, but it is more tedious to fish the crankbait on braid to leader. So day in and day out, when I'm just looking for the bite, trying to dial it in, figure out what the fish are doing, you're going to see me do the majority of that on straight fluorocarbon. 10 to 12 pound fluoro is all you need. You want to maximize your dive depth. You want to get these baits down and you want to get them down fast. Now, as far as where we're doing this, that depends on the lake. These fish can be, on the ends of hard structure. They can be on docks, rock piles, main lake points, rocky corners. But what I'm really looking for is hard structure. I love doing this on rock. I love doing it on like creek channel bends, humps out in the middle of the lake. If I can find a main lake point that has rock that runs out underwater, it's phenomenal for that stuff. The #1 follow-up question that I get from people is, if I do this, does my bait have to hit the bottom? And the answer is absolutely not. If you're doing this correctly, it will work in the middle of the water column as well. Now, hitting the bottom is better. If you have a choice of getting that thing down and hitting the bottom and bouncing off rocks and deflecting and moving, that's better. But if you can't reach the bottom, but you can reach the fish, because this is a time of year where a lot of fish lift up and suspend off the ends of points or out on island tops out in the middle of the lake, humps that are maybe 20 feet down out in the middle of the lake, and you can get your crankbait down 15 or 16 feet, but you're still not quite to the bottom. That's plenty close to catch these fish. They will absolutely come up for that thing. It's amazing how much drawing power these baits have and how the fish respond to them. So in a perfect scenario, you're looking for those main lake structures, hard rock, hard bottom, ledges where you can pop off the edge of them or you can come up them, either way. But those are the places where I like to do this. After that, you're just looking for that first bite. Once you get the first bite, it tells a story, and you just try to repeat that bite. Once you get 2 bites on similar structure or in similar parts of the lake, you have the beginnings of a pattern, and now you can replicate that for your specific lake. Now, I started out by saying as the water was warmer, you have more options. As the water gets really cold, some of those options start falling away. So today I've got 6 baits for you, and more than anything, This has to do with diving depth, okay? The fish in your lake may be at a little different depth than my lake. The vast majority of the time when I get on an epic speed cranking bite, it's between about 10 and 18 feet of water. That just seems to be the magic number. Like there are fish that are really shallow. We're not speed cranking for those most of the time, or we're doing it with shallower baits. There are fish that are really deep. We catch them other ways. It's just not as effective to speed crank crazy deep. But when the fish get into that depth zone, that's where we can very, very effectively get in front of them. We can put the bait exactly where we need it. We can run it down on these fish and we can get that response over and over and over again. And it just seems like November, December, when fish are in that depth zone around the country, they're pretty active fish. For whatever reason, it's just, I feel like when I see them there, I feel like I can catch them. So, handful of baits, but it's going to narrow down. First bait, these are in no particular order, okay? Let's talk about the DT series. The Rapala DT baits, a balsa bait. It's a wider kicking bait than a lot of these others, but as we go through fall, it can be unbelievably effective. It's the DT series, which is the Dives 2 series. So a DT8, a DT10, a DT16, right? Dives to 16 feet. Tim loves that DT16, absolutely loves it. Clear water fisheries where the bass have seen a lot of baits, where they get a lot of pressure. I'm thinking herring lakes in particular. He just mows them down with the DT series. It's incredible how well it works as we head into fall. As it starts getting really cold, that's a bait that for me falls away. But in the beginning, if you've got a DT in your box, it'll absolutely blast them. It's a really fun way to catch them. Next one up is the rock crawler. The Spro rock crawler. If you are on a lake where you've got a lot of rock, a lot of debris on the bottom, this bait deflects, it bounces off cover without snagging really well. So it has to do with this bill shape. It's a wider kick, but it just comes through those rocks, i.e. rock crawler, really, really well. I find smallmouth fisheries, spotted bass fisheries, those are places where I have a ton of confidence in that bait. Anywhere, and one thing about the rock crawler is it comes in incredible craw colors, which a lot of people overlook when speed cranking in the fall. I would say 90% of my speed cranking is done with extremely natural shad and minnow colors. 10% of it is done with craw colors, but within that 10%, there's basically only 2 baits that I throw, and the rock crawler is one of them. It's just a great bait for bouncing, particularly when the fish are up higher. Let's say 6 to 12 feet of water. That's where I really see that bait shining for me. Another one from Megabass in the Super Z series, we have the Z3. So they have a Z1, a Z2, and a Z3. It's that same sort of depth range, but what I find, same deal, craw colors. But the difference here for me is the Z3 is a much more refined, natural, tighter wobbling, colder water bait. So earlier in the season, rock crawler, and then as that fades away, because it's funny, you'll talk to people, you know, in December, they'll be blasting them on a rock crawler, and then and you talk to them, they go, oh yeah, and then the crankbait bite stops. No, it doesn't. That particular pattern stopped. You need to adjust your bait. That Super Z3 plays in that same game, but it's tighter actioned, more natural, more refined, tinier hooks. You need lighter line, softer rod, but the bite will carry on into that colder water. We've got 3 more. These 3 are the main baits that you're going to see me speed crank with, okay? And I use them as a system. Deepest to shallowest. Megabass, we have the Deep 6. Next up, we have the River to Sea Tactical DD. This is a bait that Tim and I designed with River to Sea many years ago, specifically for this pattern. And then last, again from Megabass, we have the Deep X 300. one of the most overlooked baits in bass fishing, in my opinion. Okay, those 3 baits right there. All 3 are incredibly effective right now. It actually started 3rd, 4th week of September, to be honest with you. And it will run all the way into, let's say, late February in most of the country. That fish will just be blasting these things regardless of how cold the water gets. This is the true speed cranking. Those 3 baits are the core of it. Burn, 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 pause, burn, 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 pause, burn, pause. So let's talk a little bit more about that, about the triggering, about what goes on, and then I'll talk details of each of those baits, why those baits, and when those baits, because again, this is much narrower than most people even realize. Those 3 baits, when I'm fishing the speed crank, what I am looking to do is fly past a fish and get them to react, to chase. Okay, now chasing does not mean eating. And that is important to understand. We can get them to react. That doesn't mean you can necessarily get them to eat. There's another step to this. The pause portion of this is critical to making this truly work for you. So all 3 of these baits are excellent at this game. What we're looking for is baits that have a very tight action, that have a very unique sound profile, a very unique vibration, if you will. Colors that are really natural, sort of dull colors, and that it's all part of a system. What I want is a bait that will get down extremely quickly, deflect well if it is hitting bottom, it won't hang up, and then I want it to rocket past the fish. So if I know they're on a rock pile, I'll throw past the rock pile, burn, 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 get it down, and then as soon as I hit that rock pile, I pause it, let it kind of climb over, and then full speed, burn, 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 away from that pile, and then pause, and then burn, 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 pause, burn, 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 pause, all the way back to the boat. The game here is that the bait comes in so fast that the fish notice, and this reaction happens, and they come after it. They're just hardwired for it. And that's what we didn't understand until maybe 10 or 12 years ago. You need them to have that physical response and chase. Once that happens, there are some key things. Color is everything, because as the bait is coming and passing them, if it's a bold color, if it's a chartreuse, a solid white, something really bright, a lot of times they get such a good look at it, even as it's flying by, that it's almost like they've already answered the question, right? And they just don't chase. But when it is a natural color and it comes ripping past them, they hear it, if you will, they feel it, it flies by, but they don't get a good look at it. That's when they go. Do you see how narrow this is? Color is critical for this game. You want them to lash out and chase because they felt it happen, but they didn't get a good enough look at it to answer their question, if you will. And now here they come. Once that fish is charging behind that bait, what I'm looking for is that burn, burn, pause. What I want is a cat and mouse game where the bass is flying to catch up to my bait. And I mean, 7 to 1, 8 to 1. I'm going fast, right? The bass is full speed trying to catch up just to see what on earth that was. And then when you pause and that bait stops, you are in their face. And so often, without any hesitation, they just inhale that thing. It is a core feed response. Without the pause, it's amazing how many of them run right up to the boat and either show themselves or bail off and go back down without biting. But when you understand, burn, 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 pause, burn, 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 pause, that fish is going so fast that it almost can't stop. And then when the bait in that last instance looks right, because you've chosen an excellent color, full commitment. They massacre it. We're gonna get to hooks in a minute, but just a little spoiler on that. I said they inhale it. They massacre it. The way they eat the bait, not just that they eat it, but the way they eat it is incredibly unique and allows us to use very unique hooks where the hook up to land ratio is super high. What I mean by that is not only are you going to get the biggest fish in the lake to bite, but when they do, you hook them on gear where your chance of landing them is sky high as well. This system works. It works on your lake. I don't have to have ever been there. Tim and I drive around the country so much, there's a pretty good chance we have been there on your home lake, but maybe we have, maybe we haven't. I don't have to be there to already know how well this works on your fisheries. Now, back to the 3 baits, because these are the main 3. The other 3 are supplemental to me. How do I choose between them? Okay. In the beginning, right now, early November, all 3 of these are in play. It has to do with depth. That's really all it is. If they're really, really deep, I tend to go to the deep 6. Okay, the deep 6 for me is going to consistently, on the line I'm throwing it on, it's going to, hang on, I'm hooked on both legs, there we go. It's going to get me really good fishable bottom contact at about 15, sometimes even 16 foot. But that means I can draw from even deeper than that, right? So I'm effectively fishing out into like 20, 21, 22, depending on how clear your lake is, okay? If the fish aren't that deep, I don't throw the deep 6. That's what I use it for. I use it to reach a little deeper. Maybe a storm front came through, now it's post-frontal. The fish don't feel great, so they back out just a little bit deeper. The fish were on the top of the rock pile, now they're on the bottom edge of the rock pile. That's when the deep 6 comes out, because it can still reach them, and it can do the things. If they're a little higher than that, Tactical DD 75 all day, every day. That's my bait. Again, we built this bait specifically for this. We took everything we knew, because some of the best baits ever designed for speed cranking are off the market because no one was speed cranking. No one understood what they were for. Frankly, I don't think the manufacturers that made them even realized how special they were. The baits came and went. So the best baits no longer existed. So Tim and I put our heads together and we looked at some of the best baits to ever exist, and we tried to design a bait that would give us the perfect sound, the perfect vibration, perfect color schemes for cold water specific fishing. And then we wanted a bait that would deflect off of cover. And that is what makes the Tactical DD so special, is that whole package. I've never found another speed crank that can get the bites and bounce off of everything as well as this bait. It just stays out of the snag so much better. Now that doesn't mean you're not gonna snag it up, but what I'm saying is if you line all these baits up and fish them side by side, it will get stuck way less. It is a special bait. So if my fish are anywhere in that 10 to 18, even 10 to 20, that's where I'm starting, right there. So what's left? The Deep X 300. What's the deal there? Little bit smaller, unique color schemes, little bit narrower bill shape. This bait, I'm just gonna call it more refined, which is a perfect description of almost everything megabass, right? What makes that bait special? Well, it's just a little more refined than everything else. The Deep X 300 has an extremely tight action. It has 3 or 4 excellent colors for this. It's got some colors that are for other things as well, because this was not designed to be a cold water speed cranking bait. It just turns out it's incredible for it. When do I throw this? When the going gets really tough. Day in and day out, I'm here. You guys see us throw this every day of the fall. But if it's not working on a given day, like I feel like they should be eating, I'm sure they're chasing it, or if you've got forward facing sonar, you can physically see them chase it and they don't touch it. Like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but maybe today's a Deep X 300 day and wham, there they are. It just works. It doesn't go quite as deep. My sweet spot with that bait, 10 to 14, 10 to 15. Okay, but if they're shallow enough for it, it can get some giants. Now all 3 of these baits, I want to be crystal clear with you. All 3 of these baits I have personally caught double-digit fish on. Big ones, big ones. So has Tim. All these. We're not talking about catching, when I say big ones, we're not talking 3-pounders, 5-pounders, even 7-pounders. It absolutely catches all of those. I'm talking about the biggest bass in your lake will fall for this. Fish that otherwise are trout and kokanee eaters. They're fully committed. The only way you could ever get them is swim baits. And all of a sudden you discover, oh, a 12-pounder will choke a speed crank too. Who knew? It's unbelievable how well this thing works. Now let's jump back and let's talk about these hooks, okay? 2 hooks. It's a little moist out here this morning. I got all this little fog rolling by. From Owner, we have the ST35. From Gamakatsu, we have the EWG, okay? The EWG treble. Now I've got one of each in my hand. The first thing I want you to notice about these hooks is that they're tipped in. The points are tipped in on both sets of hooks. These are incredible hooks for this technique. Every few years, we'll do a video about treble hooks. Nobody watches them because it's a boring topic. We do them anyway because the handful of people who do watch them discover that it's not boring and it changes their fishing forever. This is one of the techniques where the bass, they don't slap this bait. They don't run up and headbutt it. They don't barely touch it. They either let it go or choke it. Because again, they're chasing full speed and then it stops, they inhale. When a bass inhales a bait, you can use a tipped in point. If it's a bait that they slap, like a topwater, you want straight points, called a round bend. Okay, you don't want them tipped in, you want them straight, because that's your best chance when it slaps that it will catch that hook point. But when they're inhaling it, that is when you can get away with that curved, tipped in point. The difference is that when you hook them on that, they suck it all the way in, so you're going to get the hooks in them. Once you hook them on a curved in point, it is much, much harder for the fish to get off. Your odds of landing them skyrockets compared to a round bend treble. Skyrockets. Now, this ST35 is a very unique hook. You will notice that it is not a traditional treble. These two are essentially a flat side with one sticking straight down. This is the best hook we've ever found for our tactical DD. And in the video description, I'm gonna link everything we've talked about today, okay? Not just the baits. I will give you Tim and I's personal favorite colors for each one of these baits. So that if it's something you want to try, you can give it a whirl and you'll know exactly what we would be throwing. You can choose what you want, but you'll at least have that reference point. I'll also give you the hooks. I'll give you the exact sizes for the baits that we throw them on. The ST35 is the best hook we've ever found for the tactical DD because it's almost like an in-between size. It's a short shank and it just fits beautifully on here. But when you put that hook on, the flat side with 2 points will lay flat against the belly of the treble, or the belly of the bait, and it will leave that single point of the treble sticking straight up off of the bait. Then your back one, I turn mine the other way where I have the flat side down and 1 point up. And that's how I fish that. Now, the Gamakatsu is a much more traditional treble where it's got perfect spacing to all 3 hooks and you can just put those on your baits. But again, when you hook fish on these, your hook up to land ratio skyrockets. I tend to use that ST35 on all of the bigger cranks, and I use the Gamakatsu EWG on the smaller cranks. It hasn't always been that way. I've switched back and forth through the years, but that ST35 is like a 1.5X. Like it's stronger than a standard 1X hook, but it's not some like super heavy wire hook. I just really like how it performs on those bigger baits. It's incredible. Now, the last part of this thing is your rod, your reel, and your line, okay? It is imperative that you have a soft rod for this technique, because we're not just talking about hooking fish on a crankbait. We're talking about hooking the biggest bass of your life on a crankbait, and you need to do everything you can to put the odds in your favor of landing those fish. So the rods are critical. I have 3 rods here. Each one of these is a rod that I have a ton of confidence in, and it's simply based on how often you intend to speed crank and what your price range is. So you can, I mean, on a budget, this is a Cash-In Z2. This rod is phenomenal for cranking. It's phenomenal. I've got that paired up to a 7GF, which casts light baits shockingly well for its price point. Pair that up to 12-pound fluoro. That's actually Seagar Red Label on there. And you are in business on a budget with a rod that can absolutely handle all of this. But if you intend to do this a lot, you can spend more and you will get a rod that is lighter, more sensitive, and you'll get a reel that will cast further. And when you cast further, you dive deeper. Okay, that's the offset with crankbaits. The game is always, how far can I cast, get it down sooner, maximize my depth, be in the strike zone as long as possible. From St. Croix, this Legend tournament is amazing. The Finesse Carbon Cranker is an incredible rod, even for the tiniest of these baits, but all of these baits do really well on that setup. I've got that paired up to a Tatula SVTW70, and again, 12-pound, but now this is actually Sunline's Crank FC, which is a fluorocarbon with a little bit more stretch to it, a little bit more give, some shock absorption. Same line that I have here. This is the Loomis 906, Corrado 150. Super long casting, incredibly sensitive. The action, the way it bows up on fish on these 3 baits in particular, and actually the DT series too. The way it loads up on those 4 right there is just a dream come true. I mean, when I hook big bass, I've got my system so refined now, from my rods and my reels, to my line, to the hooks that I've got on them. When I hook a giant on the speed crank, it doesn't even, you see people load up and then you listen to them and they're like, please stay on, please stay on, please stay on, don't screw up, right? You hear people talk to themselves while they fight the fish. None of that occurs to me. That's the difference when your system is dialed. I hook up and I go, gotcha, it's over, right? I'm patient, I work them to the boat, and we get them. It doesn't even occur to me that they might come off. Every once in a while, something will go wrong and one will come off, and I'm like, I'm stupefied, right? I'm like, that never happens. So it's that rare. When you dial in your gear, it's not a guessing game. It's not random whether or not you'll land them. If you're losing a lot of your crankbait fish, your gear is not right. And it's a combination of hook, line, and rod. But once you get it right, there's nothing else like it. Those fish are pinned from the second they touch it. They're done. It's incredible how well it works. This is the speed cranking time of year. We will do more of it through the coming weeks and months. You'll see us speed cranking more and more. I mean, we love this time of year. We love this technique, but I wanted you guys to get out in front of it. Again, we're really close to the Buyer's Guide series, which eats up a few weeks. If we had waited to the other end, you've already missed a big chunk of speed cranking time. And we want you guys to catch your personal best. So we took the time to squeak this in there before all of that starts so that you can get out there and experience this technique. It is an incredible way to catch them. It truly is one of my favorites. When a giant fish commits close to the boat on a bait that they've been chasing for 30 or 40 yards, it's mind-boggling the first time that happens. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.